So anyway, I still remember that morning. October 2011. I had that old Ford Explorer, the boxy one. And I was so excited to finally get out of the city for a few hours. I packed my backpack, grabbed a Monster from the gas station, and set the GPS on my iPhone 4 to this trailhead about an hour north. Full battery, 100%. I remember Pumped Up Kicks was playing on the radio, and I was singing along like an idiot. The trail was easy at first. Pine trees, birds, just me and the rustle of dry leaves under my boots. I thought it would be a quick loop, maybe 3 miles, then back to the car before dark. But I didn't know then that my phone's battery wasn't the only thing about to die. The first hour was peaceful, the kind of quiet that you don't get in town. I remember thinking how good the pine smell was, like Christmas. I checked my phone a few times. Signal was weak, but the nav app was working. I followed the blue dot like a leash. But then I noticed the dot started lagging. The trail markers got farther apart, and I just kept walking. I told myself, one more bend, then another. That's how it happens, right? You don't realize you're lost until you're already lost. I still hate myself for not checking the battery earlier. By the time I looked, it was at 5%. 5. And the sun was already behind the trees, so I turned around. Or at least, I thought I did. I pulled up the compass on my phone, the little digital one, and it just started spinning, like a slow, drunk circle. I figured the cold was messing with the battery, or maybe the trees were blocking something. I guess that was my first real mistake, believing it was nothing. And then, crack, a branch somewhere behind me. I stopped, listened, silence, just my own breathing. I told myself it was a squirrel. You know how it is. You want it to be a squirrel. So I kept walking. But the trees looked the same, every direction, same pine trunks, same brown needles on the ground. I checked the phone again, no GPS signal, just that spinning compass. I swear I was walking south. The sun was setting on my left, so that meant south was straight ahead, right? But then the sun moved, or I moved. I don't know. I was already confused. I remember stopping next to a fallen log. My hands were cold. The phone screen flickered. 3%. I opened the nav app one more time. Nothing. Just a gray grid. And then a sound. Not a crack this time. A low hum. Distant. Like a refrigerator or a transformer. I looked up, and through the trees, I saw something gray. Not a rock, not a tree. I started walking toward it because what else was I going to do? Stand there until the battery died? I guess I thought maybe there was a road or a cabin. But yeah, it wasn't a cabin. And then I stepped out of the trees into this clearing. And the smell hit me first. Metallic, like old coins or blood, mixed with damp earth. It was a scrapyard. Old refrigerators lying on their sides, rusted car parts, a washing machine with the door hanging open. I remember thinking, okay, someone dumped this stuff years ago. Maybe it's just an old dumping ground. That's what I told myself. But then I saw the hangar, big, gray, corrugated metal. And the hum was louder now, coming from inside. I pulled out my phone, 1%, and the compass was still useless. I remember looking at the Monster can in my backpack and thinking how stupid that was. Energy drink instead of a backup battery. Come on. I walked toward the hangar because the forest behind me felt wrong. I can't explain it. The silence was too thick. No birds, no rustle. Just my footsteps and that hum. And then, the door was slightly open. I pushed it. Inside, the smell was worse. Something sour, like old sweat and hot metal. And that's when I saw the shelves, rows and rows of them, filled with phones, old flip phones, iPhones, Blackberries, laptops, GPS units. Some screens were still glowing green, just sitting there, organized, not thrown, placed, like a library of dead devices. I picked up one of the GPS units. It was warm. And then the hum stopped. Just like that, dead silence. My phone screen flashed. 4%? No, it showed a signal. And the compass was steady. South was behind me. But I wasn't looking at the phone anymore. I was looking at the far corner of the hangar. A huge diesel generator. Yanmar. It was still warm. Someone had been running it. And then I heard footsteps outside. Heavy, slow, coming toward the door. Like I couldn't move at first. The silence was so thick I could feel it in my chest. And that smell, something sour like old sweat and rust. I just stood there staring at the shelves. Row after row, dozens of phones. Some were flip phones from like 2005. Others were newer, iPhones, Blackberries, and then laptops. Old Dell Latitudes. I saw one with a sticker that said 2007. And newer MacBooks too. GPS units piled up. Some screens were still glowing, green and orange light, flickering like they were still alive. So I picked one up. A phone. The screen was cracked but lit. It had battery. I mean, how? The place had no outlets, no windows, just that giant generator humming in the corner. I told myself it was some kind of art installation, like people do that, right? Collect old tech and arrange it. But then I saw the labels, little white stickers on each shelf, dates, coordinates, names I didn't recognize. Someone was organizing this, keeping records. I remember my hands shaking. The phone in my hand buzzed. A text message. The screen said, "Come back." I dropped it. It hit the concrete floor with a crack. The screen went black, and the silence came back. But not empty silence. The kind of silence that listens. I looked around and realized these weren't just dumped here. Someone placed every single device, like trophies or bait. I finally looked at the corner. The generator. A big Yanmar diesel one. Industrial. It was humming and vibrating. The floor was warm near it. And that's when it clicked. The magnetic anomaly. The spinning compass. It wasn't the forest or the scrapyard. It was this thing. Someone left it running on purpose. To mess with signals. To trap people. I thought maybe it was a security system for the scrapyard, But that didn't make sense. Why keep it inside an abandoned hangar? Why the shelves of phones? And then, the hum stopped. Just like that. No sputter, no wind down, just off. Silence. I looked at my phone. 4%. But the signal bar was back. 3 bars. The compass showed south. The GPS loaded a map. I saw the trailhead. 2 miles that way. I could get out. I started walking toward the door. But then I heard a crack. Electrical. Like a live wire snapping, not from inside, from outside. And the metallic smell got stronger. I realized someone had been outside the whole time, listening, watching. They shut off the generator because they knew I was inside. They wanted me to see the way out. And then take it away again. You know how that feels? Hope for 3 seconds, then nothing. And then, I ran. I dropped the phone, picked it back up, ran toward the hangar door, the big metal one. I could see daylight through the crack. I pushed it. It didn't move. I pushed harder. Nothing. Then I heard footsteps outside. Heavy, slow, not running, just walking, like someone taking their time. I screamed, pounded the metal with my fists. My phone's camera flash was on. I must have hit the button. and that little light lit up the rust and the dust. I screamed again. No answer. And then the footsteps stopped right outside. Breathing, heavy and slow. I could hear them inhale, exhale. I believed I could talk my way out. I said something stupid like, "I have money," or "Please let me go." I don't remember the words. I just remember my voice shaking. Then the door slammed shut. Not pushed, slammed, like someone threw their whole body against it from outside. The sound was so loud, a snap of metal, that my ears rang. I backed up. My phone signal was gone again. 0 bars. The flashlight flickered and died, and then I heard it. A key turning in the lock on the other side. Metal on metal. Click. I was inside. They were outside. And they had the key. I guess I don't remember much after that. Hours went by. I sat against the wall. The silence was the worst part. No hum, no footsteps, just my own heartbeat. And then, like a whisper from somewhere. Maybe outside, maybe inside my head, I don't know. But yeah, I found a window. Rusted, small, behind a shelf of old GPS units. I broke the glass with a laptop. Crawled out. Cut my arm, didn't feel it. Ran through the dark forest until I hit a road. A truck driver picked me up. He said I looked like I'd seen a ghost. Police went to the hangar the next morning. I gave them the coordinates. They searched for 3 hours. Nothing. No generator. No phones. No shelves. Just an empty concrete building with a dirt floor. The report said, "No evidence found." They told me I probably got lost and imagined the rest because of dehydration. I guess that's what they have to say. But yeah, I still check my locks every night. Twice. Sometimes 3 times. And when my phone battery hits 10%, I don't charge it. I just turn it off and sit in the dark. Because at least then, I know no one can find me. I still remember that morning. So anyway, we were all crammed into my Ford Explorer, me, Sarah, and Kate, driving out to the same trail we'd hiked a dozen times before. This was 2009, you know? Kate had her iPod plugged into the aux, and I mean, she played Poker Face on repeat for like 20 minutes. We were laughing about nothing. The sun was warm. It felt like one of those perfect stupid days you don't appreciate until later. Looking back, that stranger's face was the last normal thing any of us saw before everything fell apart. We parked near the trailhead and started walking. The pine scent was everywhere, thick and sweet. I remember thinking how good it smelled. Sarah was talking about some guy she'd met at a party. Kate kept kicking rocks. I was just listening, you know, just being there. The path was familiar, so we weren't paying much attention. We'd done this hike maybe 8 times before. Nothing ever happened out there. Then I heard a crack, a sharp one, like someone stepping on a thick twig. I turned my head. Maybe 50 yards ahead, near a bend in the trail, there was a guy standing there. Just standing. He wasn't moving. He wore a blue jacket. I mean, probably just another hiker, right? That's what I told myself. Sarah didn't even notice. Kate kept walking, but I kept looking at him for a second too long. And then he disappeared behind the trees. I didn't say anything. You know how it is. You don't want to sound crazy. So anyway, we kept walking. And then, like 10 minutes later, everything changed. We came around this bend, and the guy from before just exploded out of the bushes. I mean, he was running. His face was red. He was breathing so hard I could hear it from 20 feet away. This wet, heavy breathing. The ground under our feet was damp from the rain the night before, and he nearly slipped. He grabbed his chest and started yelling. "Call 911, he screamed. "There's a man on the clearing. Heart attack. He's dying. Please, you have to call." I guess I froze for a second. Sarah grabbed my arm. Kate was already reaching for her phone. But there was no signal. None of us had service. We knew that. We always knew that. The guy kept looking between us, panicked. "Please," he said again. His voice was cracking. "He's gonna die." So anyway, I made the call. I told Emma to run ahead with the guy. "Go to the clearing," the man said, pointing east. "Just keep straight. You can't miss it. I'll stay here with your friends." He was wearing a Casio watch. I remember noticing that for some reason. A cheap digital watch. And a blue North Face jacket. He looked like any other hiker. Emma looked at me, and I nodded. She took off running. The man turned to me and Kate and said, "He's just panicked. It's a real emergency. We need to wait here. Stay calm." He smiled a little. I thought that was weird. But I guess I didn't think much of it. People smile when they're stressed, right? Kate asked him his name. He said it was Mike. Then he sat down on a rock and started asking us questions. Where were we from? Did we have family nearby? He seemed too calm now. But I didn't want to be rude. And then, I just wanted Emma to come back already. I ran. That's all I could do. The trail got narrower, and the trees got thicker. My Nike Air Max sneakers, the old ones from last season, kept slipping on the wet roots. I almost fell twice. The rustle of leaves was everywhere, like something was moving beside me. But every time I looked, there was nothing. The guy said the clearing was straight ahead, but after 5 minutes, I started doubting myself. Had I passed it? Was I going the right way? I called out. No answer, just silence. Complete silence. No birds, no wind. I could hear my own heartbeat. That was it. I guess I thought, maybe he was just dehydrated, nothing crazy. Maybe the guy really was having a heart attack and I was being stupid. So I kept running. 10 minutes. 15. My legs were burning. The forest started looking wrong, not like the trail I knew. The trees were closer together. The light was weird. And then, I smelled something. Damp earth, sure, but also something else. Something sour. I told myself it was just the mud. Finally, I burst into a small clearing. There was no man having a heart attack. There was a tent, a torn tent, ripped open like someone had clawed their way out. A sleeping bag shredded on the ground, and dirt everywhere, like a struggle, like something had been dragged. I stood there for maybe 5 seconds. My brain couldn't catch up. And then I whispered, "Hello?" No one answered. And then I heard a branch snap behind me. I stood there for maybe 5 seconds. My brain couldn't catch up. And then I whispered, "Hello?" No one answered. The tent was wrecked. Completely shredded. The Coleman sleeping bag inside was torn open like someone had clawed from the inside. And there was a green mug on the ground, one of those cheap enamel ones, still half full of something dark. Coffee, maybe, or cold tea. But yeah, no person, no heart attack, nothing. I took a step closer. The smell hit me then. Something metallic like old coins or faint blood, mixed with rot, like wet leaves left too long. My stomach turned. The ground around the tent was churned up. Dirt kicked everywhere. And there were these long grooves in the mud, like something had been dragged toward the trees. So anyway, I called out again, louder this time. "Hello? Is anyone here?" Silence. I told myself it had to be animals. Maybe a bear tore through the tent and the people ran off. Or they already left, right? That made sense. I mean, that's what I wanted to believe. I grabbed the torn flap of the tent and looked inside. Empty. Just a crushed sleeping pad and some scattered granola bars. But then I saw the zipper. It wasn't ripped. It was cut. Clean, like with a knife. I backed away. My hands were shaking. And that's when I heard it. A low metallic sound from the tree line, like a buckle hitting a rock. I spun around. No one was there. But I knew then. Something was very, very wrong. I turned and ran back toward the trail. I ran faster than I ever have in my life. Branches whipped my face. My legs were burning. And then, like, oh my God, I started screaming their names. Sarah, Kate. No answer, just the sharp crack of branches under my feet. I kept running. The trail blurred. I couldn't breathe right. And then I broke through the last set of trees and saw the spot where I'd left them. They were on the ground. Sarah was sitting against a log, her hands tied behind her back with a thick tent rope. Kate was next to her, same thing. Their mouths were taped over, silver duct tape. Their eyes were huge, wet. Sarah was crying so hard her whole body shook. The man was gone. I slid to my knees in front of them. The sour smell of sweat hit me. Fear sweat. You know that smell? It was everywhere. Sarah's pink razor phone lay on the ground nearby. The screen cracked. The car keys, with that little Lego keychain Kate had, were gone. All three of our phones were gone. Oh God, I kept saying. Oh God, oh God. I tried to untie Sarah first, but the rope was tight. My fingers were shaking too much. Kate made a muffled sound through the tape, like she was trying to say something. I ripped the tape off her mouth. She gasped and coughed. He told us to wait, she whispered. Said Emma would be right back. Then he pulled out rope from his jacket. I thought maybe he had a knife. But no, just rope. He tied us so fast. And then he took everything and walked into the trees. I looked around. The forest was silent. No birds, nothing. He can't be far, I said. We can still catch him. But even as I said it, I knew we couldn't. My hands were still shaking, and somewhere behind us, a twig snapped. I froze. We all did. The silence was so heavy, no birds, no wind, nothing. Just the feel of the rough rope digging into my palms as I kept trying to undo the knots. Don't, Kate whispered. Just get us loose. I finally got Sarah's hands free. She ripped the tape off her own mouth and started crying, like ugly crying. I told her to help with Kate's rope. My fingers were bleeding from the nylon. But yeah, we got Kate loose in maybe 2 minutes. Felt like an hour. Sarah grabbed my arm. Her nails dug in. He said he'd come back, she said. After he took the keys, he stood right there and looked at us. He said, "Don't go anywhere. I'll be back for the rest." I felt my stomach drop. The rest of what? She just shook her head. And then it hit me. The whole thing was a setup. The fake heart attack, sending me away, leaving them alone. He didn't want to hurt us. He wanted our stuff. Phones, keys, wallets. I guess that was the plan. Just a robbery. But why tie them up? Why the tent with the cut zipper? He's not coming back for our stuff, Kate said quietly. She was staring at the trees. He's coming back for us. I don't know if that was true, but I didn't want to wait to find out. I pulled Sarah to her feet. We have to walk now. We started moving. No phones, no keys, no car. Just the three of us and the trail getting darker. And behind us, I swear, I heard footsteps, like someone matching our pace. I didn't look back. We walked for hours. It felt like forever. The sun went down, and it got cold. that cold wind that cuts through your jacket. We couldn't feel our fingers anymore. Sarah kept tripping. Kate didn't say a word. Finally, we heard it. A distant highway hum. We followed the sound until we saw the lights of a gas station, a Circle K. This was like 3 in the morning, 2009, you know? The fluorescent lights were buzzing. The clerk just stared at us when we walked in. We must have looked insane, covered in dirt, bleeding, crying. He let us use the phone. We called the police. They came. They took statements. They searched the forest for 2 days. Nothing. No man, no tent, no rope, no phones, no keys. They found the car, but the keys were never recovered. The police said maybe we lost our phones. Maybe we made it up for attention. Our parents believed the police. So anyway, that was it. Case closed. But sometimes, late at night, I still hear footsteps outside my window. And I remember what that man said to Sarah before he left. I'll be back for the rest. I don't know what he meant. I don't want to know. So anyway, me and Finn decided to go camping that weekend. It was 2009, I was 17, and we both had this dumb idea that driving out to the middle of nowhere would be an adventure. Finn had his dad's Ford Explorer, the old boxy one, and we had Mr. Brightside playing on the radio. You know, the usual. We were just looking for a place to pitch a tent. I didn't know that by sunset, we'd be jumping from 50 feet just to stay alive. We took a logging road that looked promising, then another. Then the pavement turned to gravel, and the gravel turned to dirt. We were deep. The pine trees were so thick you couldn't see the sky. That's when we saw it. This old cell tower standing in a clearing. Rusty metal, but it looked intact. Finn got excited. He said we could climb it and get a cool photo for his MySpace page. I remember the smell of pine needles, real strong, and a distant rustle somewhere in the brush. Probably just an old weather tower, I thought. You know how you tell yourself stuff like that. And then we got closer. The ladder was rusty as hell, but felt solid enough. Finn went first because he's the reckless one. I followed. Each step made this metallic clang that echoed through the trees. I remember looking down after maybe 20 feet and thinking, okay, that's high enough. But Finn kept going. I guess I started noticing things halfway up. There were no antennas on this thing, no dishes, no blinking lights, just these weird metal boxes bolted to the platform. Like, what are those? But I shrugged it off. Probably just old telecom junk, right? That's what I told myself. The wind picked up, making this low whistle through the girders. My hands were getting sweaty. Finn's backpack had duct tape holding a strap together. I could see it flapping in the wind above me. The climb felt longer than it should. Way longer. Like the tower was growing as we went up. I almost turned back. But Finn yelled down like, "You coming or what?" So I kept climbing. When we finally got to the top, I expected antennas. You know, the usual cell tower stuff. But no. There was a grid of shotgun microphones, those long silver things, and small cameras. All of them pointed into the forest, not outward, not at the road. They were aimed at the trees, like someone was listening to the woods. No labels, no logos, no serial numbers, just blank metal. I pulled out my phone. Wait, what? No signal. Finn checked his. Dead too. We were 50 feet up in the air. You'd think at least one bar. Nothing. Finn tried to joke, said maybe it's a wildlife research thing. But his voice was shaking. I could hear this low electric hum coming from one of the boxes. It wasn't loud. just there. And then the forest went dead silent. No birds, no wind. Just that hum. I looked down through the grate we were standing on, and that's when I saw the van. So anyway, I looked down through the grate, and there it was. A white Ford Econoline. No plates, no logos, nothing. Just pulled up on that logging road like it knew exactly where to go. Gravel crunching under the tires. Two men got out. Black jackets, black pants. No words, no nothing. And then they walked straight to the tower. I grabbed Finn's arm and pointed. His face went pale. The men didn't look up. They just started examining the ladder. One of them had a wrench. I heard ratchet clicks, metal on metal. He was loosening the bolts. You know, the ones holding the ladder to the tower. I wanted to yell something, but my throat was dry. Finn whispered that maybe they're just maintenance. "We'll just explain," he said. But his voice was shaking. The men worked fast. No talking, no looking around. Like they'd done this before. I mean, who were they? The van had no markings. Their jackets had no badges, nothing. Just two guys in black, taking apart the only way down. And then the second man pointed up, right at us. We'd been seen. The first man looked up too. No shouting, no waving, just a nod. Then he went back to work. Faster now. Another metallic snap. A ladder section came off and fell to the ground. Then another. I yelled down. I said, "We're just kids, we're sorry, we'll leave." No response. The second man pulled out a Motorola walkie-talkie, said something muffled, and nodded again. Like he was confirming something. I mean, they weren't stopping. They were making sure we couldn't climb down. The ladder was getting shorter by the second. 50 feet up. Cold wind. And these guys just kept removing rungs like it was their job. Finn looked at me. His eyes were wide. He said maybe they're just securing it. But even he didn't believe that. I could hear my own heartbeat. The ladder was almost gone. We were trapped. But yeah, that's when we realized they didn't want us to come down. They wanted us to stay up there. And then Finn spotted the pine trees below. Thick branches, maybe 15 feet down from the platform. Not straight down, at an angle. He said we have to jump. I looked at the men. They were removing the last ladder rungs. No time to think. I just went. I pushed off the railing and aimed for the treetops. Branches cracked against my arms, my face. The sour smell of pine sap filled my nose. I hit one branch, then another. They broke my fall but shredded my timberland boots. Then the ground, hard. My ankle twisted under me. Pain shot up my leg. I yelled for Finn. He jumped right after. He landed worse. His shoulder hit a thick branch, and I heard this pop. He screamed but got up. His arm was hanging wrong. We limped into the woods as the van's engine started behind us. And then we just ran, or hobbled. Didn't look back. We found the highway at dawn. A gas station with a payphone. 2009, you know, before everyone had smartphones. I called my dad. He came and got us. The police went back to the tower. You know what they found? Nothing. Empty. No van, no microphones, no cameras. Just a rusted tower. The ladder was intact, all the rungs in place. Our phones showed no signal loss. My ankle was sprained. Finn needed surgery for his shoulder. Our parents thought we fell fooling around, trying to be cool. No one believed us. But I mean, I know what I saw. The men, the van, the microphones pointing into the trees. And sometimes, late at night when everything is quiet, I hear this faint hum outside my window. Distant engine maybe, or maybe nothing. You know how it is. But I still check the locks every single night. So anyway, I've always liked camping alone. That's just how I unwind, you know? Back in 2011, I had this old Ford Explorer, the boxy kind, dark green, with a cracked dashboard and that weird smell of pine air freshener mixed with old fast food wrappers. One weekend in October, I decided to drive up to Pine Ridge Forest. Just me, a tent, a sleeping bag, and a bag of cheap groceries from the Walmart near my apartment. I got there right around dusk. The sun was already falling behind the trees, painting everything orange and dark green. I found a little clearing maybe 50 feet off the main trail, just enough space to set up my tent without being too visible from the path. I unzipped the tent bag, threaded the poles, and hammered the stakes into the soft ground with a rock. Then I gathered some dry branches and got a small fire going. The smoke smelled sharp and clean, that pine smoke smell I've always loved. It reminded me of camping with my dad as a kid. I was heating up a can of beans when I heard it. A rustle somewhere in the bushes behind me. Not loud, but close, maybe 20 feet away. I stopped stirring and listened. Nothing else, just the crackle of the fire and the wind moving through the trees. Probably just a deer or a raccoon, I told myself. I mean, you hear stuff in the woods. It's normal. But then I remembered what my friend Mike had said a few weeks earlier. We were having beers at his place, and I told him I was planning a solo trip up to Pine Ridge. He got this weird look on his face and said, "Don't go camping alone up there, man. Too many weirdos around lately." I laughed it off at the time. Mike was always worried about something. Car trouble, food poisoning, you name it. I figured he was just being Mike. Anyway, I finished eating. The beans were bland, but I was hungry. I kicked dirt over the fire until the last ember died, then crawled into my sleeping bag. My phone was still on, maybe 2 bars of signal if I held it up toward the sky. I scrolled through some texts, replied to my mom, then put the phone next to my head on the ground. The tent walls flapped a little in the breeze. Somewhere far away, an owl called out. What I didn't realize was that his act of desperation was just the beginning of a nightmare I still can't wake up from. I closed my eyes and listened to the silence, and then I fell asleep thinking about nothing at all. I woke up to a snap, a sharp, clean snap, like someone stepping on a dry twig right outside the tent. My eyes opened immediately. Everything was black. No moonlight filtered through the nylon. I couldn't even see my own hand in front of my face. I reached over slowly, fumbled for my phone, and pressed the button. The screen lit up. 12:03 a.m. Then I heard footsteps. Heavy, slow, coming closer. One step, then a pause. Another step. The ground was damp from the evening dew, so the footsteps made a soft squelching sound. Someone was out there. My hand went to the tent zipper, but I didn't move it yet. I mean, it could have been another camper, right? Someone lost? Someone looking for their own site? I held my breath and listened. Then a voice, weak, shaky, a man's voice, low and rough, like he'd been screaming or crying. He said, "Please, is someone in there? Please, I need help." I hesitated. You know how it is. You want to be a good person, but your gut tells you to stay quiet. Every horror movie I'd ever watched flashed through my head. But he sounded desperate, genuinely scared. So I unzipped the tent. The first thing I saw was his face. He was maybe 40, 5'10", wearing a dirty flannel shirt, red and black checkered, stained dark on one sleeve. His skin was pale, too pale, like he'd lost a lot of blood, and he was holding his right arm with his left hand. The whole sleeve from elbow to wrist was soaked. Dark liquid dripped from his fingers onto the damp earth, I could smell it, that metallic, iron smell of fresh blood. He looked at me with these wide, glassy eyes and said, "Please, something attacked me. An animal. I need bandages or something. Please, man, I'm bleeding bad." I looked at the wound. It was deep, a gash right across his forearm. The skin was pulled apart and I could see something white under the blood. Not bone, maybe tendon. I don't know. I'm not a doctor, but it looked real. It looked like someone had been cut with something sharp, a knife, maybe, or a piece of broken glass. He was just a lost hiker, I told myself. I'd want someone to help me if I was bleeding out in the dark. That's what I kept thinking. So I nodded and said, "Yeah, okay. I have a first aid kit." Hang on. I turned back into the tent and reached for my backpack. Behind me, I heard him breathing. Heavy, wet breaths. Like he was trying not to cry, or like he was smiling. I didn't know which. But I didn't look back. I just unzipped the main compartment and started digging for the red kit. I pulled out the kit, one of those small red ones from Walmart with the cheap gauze and antiseptic wipes. The kind you buy for $10 and hope you never have to use. I knelt down in front of him and told him to let me see his arm. He held it out toward the flashlight I'd turned on. And then I smelled it. The blood was dark, almost black under the LED light. Not bright red like it should have been. And the smell wasn't right either. You know that metallic iron smell I mentioned? This was different. It was sour. Like something that had been sitting out too long. Like old meat left in a hot car. I remember thinking, that's not what human blood smells like. But I didn't say anything. I mean, maybe I was imagining it. The dark plays tricks on your nose. Maybe it was just the damp earth or my own sweat. So I tore open a gauze pad and reached for his arm. I told him to hold still. He nodded, still doing that shaky breathing. He said thank you in that trembling voice. I asked what kind of animal it was. He mumbled, "Big dog." Came out of nowhere. Ran off when I yelled. I pressed the gauze against the wound, and then he straightened up, all at once. Like a switch flipped inside him. His whole posture changed. He wasn't hunched over anymore. He was standing tall, looking down at me. I looked up at his face. He wasn't pale anymore. The flashlight caught his expression. He was smiling, a calm, quiet smile, like he'd just finished something he'd been waiting for. And then I felt a sharp jolt against my neck, like 100 bees stinging me at the same time. My whole body locked up, every muscle clenched at once. I couldn't move. I couldn't even fall. I just froze there on my knees, staring up at him. The flashlight rolled out of my hand and pointed at the trees. The last thing I saw was him pulling the taser away from my skin. He whispered something, but I couldn't hear it over the ringing in my ears. Everything went gray, then black. I guess I passed out. Maybe he hit me again. I don't know. But when I opened my eyes again, I was tied to a tree. My wrists were bound behind the trunk with zip ties, the thick kind, the ones you need scissors or a knife to cut. My mouth was taped shut with silver duct tape, and he was going through my backpack like he owned it. He pulled out my phone, my wallet, my keys. He tossed my sleeping bag onto the ground. And then he looked at me and said, "Third one this week. Thanks for the phone and the cash." And he walked away into the dark without looking back. I don't know how long I was out. Could have been 10 minutes. Could have been 2 hours. When I opened my eyes, everything was dark. Not the dark of night with stars, the dark of deep forest where the trees block out everything. My head was pounding. There was a sour taste in my mouth like battery acid. Then I tried to move. My wrists were pulled tight behind me. I felt plastic biting into my skin, zip ties. The thick kind, the ones they use for electrical cables. I was tied to a tree trunk, my back against the rough bark. My legs were free but numb from sitting in the same position. And there was tape over my mouth. Duct tape. Silver. I could smell the adhesive, sharp and chemical. I blinked a few times and looked around. The tent was still there, half collapsed. My fire pit was just cold ash, and the man was still there. He was crouched next to my backpack, going through it like he had all the time in the world. He pulled out my phone, the old flip phone I had back then, and put it in his jacket pocket, then my wallet. He opened it, looked at my driver's license, and smiled. He said, "Third one this week. Thanks for the phone and the cash." Then he stood up. He didn't look at me. He just walked over to my tent, unzipped it, and grabbed my sleeping bag. He shook it out, found nothing else, and dropped it. Then he picked up my keys, the Ford Explorer keys with a little rubber fob, and put them in his other pocket. I tried to scream through the tape. It came out as a muffled grunt. He turned his head slowly, looked at me and smiled again. Then he walked away into the trees. I heard his footsteps on the damp ground for maybe 10 seconds. Then silence. Nothing. No birds, no wind. Just the sound of my own breathing through my nose. I sat there for what felt like an hour. Maybe more. The zip ties were tight, too tight to slip out. But the tree had a branch stub behind me, rough and broken. I started rubbing the plastic against it. Back and forth, back and forth. My wrists burned. I could feel blood dripping down my palms, but I didn't stop. But yeah, I kept thinking, maybe he just wanted to rob me. He's gone now. That's what I told myself. Just a robbery. I'll get free and walk to the highway, no big deal. The plastic finally snapped. My hands flew apart. I tore the tape off my lips. And I mean tore. It took skin with it. I didn't care. I stood up on numb legs and fell twice before I could stand straight. The tent was empty. My phone was gone. My wallet was gone. My keys were gone. I looked at the dark trail leading back to the main road, and I started running. I ran through the dark without a flashlight. Every few steps I hit a branch or tripped over a root. The forest was completely black. No moon, no stars. I couldn't see my own hands, but I kept moving. I followed the trail by feel, my hands out in front of me like a blind man. Branches whipped across my face. One cut my cheek. I felt the warm blood run down to my jaw. I didn't stop. I fell once, hard, my knees slamming into a rock. Something cracked. I got up and kept running. The pain was just noise at that point. And then I heard it. Footsteps behind me. Not his. I don't think so. Probably just my own echoes, or an animal. But I didn't look back. I just ran faster. My lungs were burning. My legs were shaking. Every shadow looked like a man standing between the trees. I finally saw a break in the canopy. Light. Orange light. Headlights moving on the highway maybe a quarter mile ahead. I aimed for it and ran through the last stretch of trees. The ground gave way to gravel, then asphalt. I stumbled onto the shoulder of the road and waved my arms. A semi-truck was coming from the left. The headlights got bigger and brighter. I thought he wouldn't see me. I thought he'd hit me. But the air brakes hissed and the truck pulled over 50 feet past me. The driver opened his door and climbed down. He was a big guy, gray beard, flannel shirt. He asked if I was okay. I tried to talk, but my throat was dry. I just pointed back at the trees and said, A man tied me up. He took everything. The driver pulled out his phone, a 2011 flip phone, just like mine had been, and called 911. I sat down on the gravel and put my head between my knees. The ground smelled like diesel and wet dirt. I didn't move until the cop car showed up 10 minutes later. So anyway, the deputy took my statement. He wrote everything down in a little notebook. He asked me to describe the man. I told him everything. The flannel shirt, the fake wound, the taser, the zip ties. He nodded and said they'd send someone up to the campsite. But I could see it in his eyes. He didn't fully believe me. Not yet. They drove me back to the campsite at dawn, 2 deputies and a K9 unit. The dog sniffed around for maybe 20 minutes. Nothing. The man was gone. My tent was still there, half collapsed. My sleeping bag was on the ground. But no phone, no wallet, no keys. One of the deputies found a piece of duct tape stuck to a tree. That was it. No fingerprints, no footprints. The ground was too dry and packed. They asked me if I was sure about the taser. I said yes. They asked if I'd been drinking. I said no. I mean, I knew how it looked. A guy alone in the woods, no witnesses, no physical evidence, except some tape and a story about a bleeding man. But then the deputy got a call on his radio. He walked a few feet away, talked low, then came back with a different look on his face. He said, "You're not the first." 3 other hikers had reported the same thing over the past 2 weeks. Same MO, same description of the man, same fake wound, same taser and zip ties. One of them remembered the man saying 4th this week instead of 3rd, so he'd been doing this for a while, targeting solo campers, robbing them, leaving them tied up in the dark. They never found him. Forensics tested the blood residue on the gauze I had used. It wasn't human. Pig's blood. You can buy it at any hunting supply store. They use it to train tracking dogs. He'd been carrying a little pouch of it under his sleeve. Squeeze it, and the fake wound bleeds on cue. I sat in the back of the deputy's car and listened to all of this. My hands were still raw from the zip ties. My cheek was still bleeding. And all I could think was, he knew exactly what he was doing. Every step was planned, the act, the voice, the trembling, all of it. You know, I guess I should have felt relieved. They believed me now. But I didn't feel anything. Just empty. Like someone had pulled a plug and drained everything out. They gave me a ride to a motel. I called my mom from the front desk phone. I didn't tell her what happened. I just said my car got stolen and I'd be home in a few days. But I couldn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw him smiling. I moved to the city after that. Apartment on the 3rd floor, steel door, deadbolt. I thought if I put enough locks between me and the outside, I'd feel safe. But I didn't. I still don't. I sleep with the lights on. Every light in the apartment, the bathroom, the kitchen, the hallway. My TV runs all night on low volume, just so I don't have to hear silence, because silence sounds like footsteps in the dark. 3 months later, I was sitting on my couch watching some late-night show. My new phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. But I did. No one spoke, just breathing. Slow, steady breathing, like someone listening. I said hello 3 times, then a click. The call ended. I checked my front door. It was unlocked. I always lock it. I remember locking it that night. But it was open, just a crack, like someone had been inside, or someone was still there. I searched the whole apartment, closets, shower, under the bed. Nothing, no one, just me and the buzzing of the lights. Probably a wrong number, I told myself. Probably I forgot to lock it. That's what I keep telling myself. But anyway, like, I still check my back seat every time I get into a car, every single time, even in parking lots, even in broad daylight. I look at faces in crowds. I watch the tree line when I drive through forests. I don't go camping anymore. I don't even go hiking. He was never caught. The police closed the case after 6 months. No leads, no suspects. Just 4 victims and a story that doesn't sound real. I mean, maybe it wasn't real. Maybe I dreamed it. But my wrists still have scars. And sometimes, late at night, I swear I hear breathing on the other end of a dead line. So yeah, that's what happened. I don't tell the story much anymore, because nobody really believes it. And the ones who do, they just get scared too.